Good afternoon and welcome to Pan-African News Radio on Pan-African Television. We're coming to you from our studios in Abilinkpe 48 Swanika Street here in Accra. Let me remind you that we are streaming live on Facebook at Pan-African Television and also live on YouTube at Pan-African Television. Now to our top stories for this afternoon. Home Municipal Assembly enforces directive on wearing of face masks. NIA staff to undergo coronavirus tests after CEO tests positive. Now 10 women contesting in the upcoming New Patriotic Party primaries in the Eastern region on Saturday, 20th of this month. We'll be looking at how their performances are going to be. Our director encourages farmers to increase production. Detail of its stories, including sports, international, and entertainment, will come your way for the next 1 hour. We're going for a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Now, the Home Municipal Assembly is enforcing the directive of the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, to make wearing of face masks compulsory. The Assembly has instituted a spot fine of 20 Ghana cedis against persons who are caught without nose masks in the public domain.
The fine is in accordance with the current fee-fixing schedule of Assembly bylaws, a circular from the Assembly has stated. President Akufo-Addo on Sunday issued a warning that anyone found in public space without a face mask will be arrested by the police. He said the act constituted an offence and the police have been instructed to enforce this directive, which was subject of an executive instrument. Speaking during his 11th address to the country on the management of coronavirus, President Akufo-Addo said the wearing of masks was mandatory.
It is important for me to remind residents of the Greater Accra and Ashanti regions, where the great majority of cases have been recorded, and in the Western and Central regions, where we're seeing an increase in infection cases, to continue to adhere strictly to the social distancing and enhanced hygiene protocols announced. With the doctors and scientists telling us that the virus is transmitted from human contact through talking, singing, coughing, and sneezing, which results in sending droplets of the virus from one person to another. Residents of these 4 regions, and indeed all Ghanaians, must remember that the wearing of masks is now mandatory. Leaving our homes without a face mask or face covering on is an offense. The police have been instructed to enforce this directive, which is the subject of an executive instrument.
A compulsory test of COVID-19 is to be conducted on all staff of the National Health Insurance Authority, NHIA, before the end of this week after the CEO of the authority tested positive for the virus. The impending test has become necessary after some staff who have come into contact with the CEO also tested positive for the coronavirus.
The Chief Executive Officer of the National Health Insurance Authority, Dr. Lydia Selby, tested positive for the disease. According to her, she tested positive for the disease after experiencing tiredness, body pains, and headaches. Meanwhile, 4 more persons have died from the novel coronavirus, shooting the death toll in Ghana to 58. Addressing a press conference in Accra, the Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Patrick Abuaji-Kuma, announced that a total of 229 new cases have been recorded as of June 15, 2020, pushing the total number of confirmed cases to 12,193. Of the new cases, 70 were from the Ashanti region, followed by the Central region with 42 cases, and then 34 cases in the Savannah region.
away from the 63 candidates, including 10 women, are contesting in the New Patriotic Party NPP parliamentary primaries on June 20 to represent the party in 27 constituencies in the December 7, 2020 general election. The 63 candidates were cleared by the vetting committee and upheld by the National Executive Committee out of 29 aspirants who filed their nominations for consideration to contest.
4 out of the 10 women are sitting members of parliament, with 2 of them going unopposed. They are Mrs. Abna Osei Asare, MP for Etiwa East and Deputy Finance Minister, and Mrs. Nana Dokuya Asiama Eje, MP Ekropon and the Deputy Information Minister. However, Mrs. Gifty Chum Ampofo, Ebuakwa North MP and Deputy Minister of Education, and Mrs. Mercy Edujemfi, MP of Akwetia, are being contested. The other women contesting are Nana Sewa Echampon, Ebuakwa North, Ida Ajoa Esiedu and Josephine Ewuku Ansa, Ayen Suano, Gifty Clenam, Lower West Akim, Joyce Opoku-Boateng Nkoko, and Efiacherewa Nyantechi in Samwem Adwejiri. 10 others going unopposed include Daniel Boche, former Deputy Eastern Regional Minister, Appiah Krobo, Minister of Regional Reorganization and Development, Okere, Mr. Brian Champon, Minister of State, Abetifi, Mr. George Kwame Abuaje, Asene Manso Akroso, and Mr. Kojo Oponinkroma, Minister of Information of Fuasi Ayuebi. The rest are Mr. Kwesi Amwakwata, Minister of Roads and Highways, Etiwa West, Mr. Samuel Atachia, Minister of Works and Housing, Ebuakwa South, Mr. Kwabna Amankwa Esiama, Fantiakwa North, and Mr. Osei Frimpong, Abrim. Nkoko has the highest number of contestants going to battle out with Mr. Eric Kwache Dafuo, the sitting MP, who is also the Eastern Regional Minister. They are Mr. Kwabna Okechiri, former MP, Mr. Seth Ba, popularly known as Shaba, Mr. David Asante, Chief Executive Officer of Ghana Publishing, Mr. Joseph Frimpong, and Mrs. Joyce Boateng, Deputy CEO of the Middle Belt Development Authority. The new job in South and North has seen a replay of the 2016 primaries where the same aspirants, Mr. Mark Asibeyebwa, incumbent and chairman of the Parliamentary Finance Committee, faces Mr. Michael Ochrebefi, Chief Executive Officer of the Free Zones Authority for the New Jabin South seat, while Nana Kwesi Eje Boateng, incumbent and Deputy Local Government Minister, would face Mr. Samson Kwesi Ano for New Jabin North. Ms. Gifty Clenam, a former Member of Parliament for Lower West Achim and former Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Export Promotion Authority, is battling it out with Mr. Charles Champon, Mr. Kwabna Sintima Boaji, a former District Chief Executive, Mr. Kwabna Nkansa Samoa, and Mr. Kwejo Odami Entry. Ms. Mercy Edujemfi, popularly known as Amase, faces 3 men, Mr. Bernard Oredu Donko, Mr. Ernest Kumi, and Mr. Robert Boateng Amprechum for the Akwetia seat, while Mr. Frank Anodompre, incumbent, was facing Mr. David Edu Tutu and Ms. Efuacherewa Nyantechi for the Nsawem Adwejiri seat. Mr. Samuel Ayepai, incumbent MP for Ayen Suano, is battling it out with 3 others, Ms. Adresi Edua, Ms. Josephine Ewuku Ansa, and Mr. Mark Tete Randolph.
The Executive Director of the African Center for Health Research Policy and Analysis, Dr. Thomas Winsom Anaba, has expressed fear over registration of eligible voters due to the COVID-19 pandemic. In an interaction with our news team, the health expert cited reasons for his take on the exceedingly worrying, controversial issue.
People who are aged and people who have comorbidities, especially hypertension, diabetes, cardiac problems, renal problems, asthma, chronic pulmonary disease, when they get them, we all know that majority of them die. So if a proportion of Ghanaians who are aged have these comorbidities, and about 10 to 12% of the population of voters are the aged and those who have comorbidity. Definitely, if you have a comorbidity, you definitely have some fear within you whether to go and register or not to register. Saying you won't go and register means that you are putting your life first, but that does not allow them to exercise their franchise as Ghanaians to participate in the election of the parliamentarians they want or the president they want to govern the country. As we speak currently, the main hospitals that are taking care of the critical cases are saturated with patients. If we get more to add and it overwhelms them, we are going to have serious challenges. The trend now in Ghana is that virtually every day we get more than 200 people being positive in the last 1 week. If we open schools, then start the registration process, what is going to happen to these people? Possibility is that will increase the spread of the COVID-19. So I reason with all those who say they won't go and register simply because they stand the risk of contracting the disease and they also stand a higher risk of dying. They're saying that they won't need more than 25 people at the polling station. As we stand now, I know Ghana has about 20 political parties, and every political party is supposed to have one person there. So let's say 20 people plus the EC official 26. The number is already up. Whom are they going to register? I think these measures, we have put them in various places, and the disease is still spreading. Why do we want to expose a vulnerable group like those people you have interviewed in contracting COVID-19? We shouldn't expose them. Don't go to the place to go and register. That is my advice. My advice to anybody who is above 60 years, 55 going, who has suffered any chronic ailment, should stay away from the polling stations or registration centers, or else the possibility of contracting the virus and dying is very high.
The Electoral Commission (EC) will on Thursday, June 18, 2020, exhibit and pilot some of its biometric registration devices that will be used for the planned voters registration exercise. The registration exercise, which is expected to come off on June 30, has been met with stiff opposition from civil society groups and some opposition political parties.
The EC says Thursday's exhibition and piloting, which is open to the public, will be a test for the registration. Meanwhile, the Commission has denied claims that it has created new constituencies ahead of the election. A deputy chairperson of the EC, Dr. Bosman Asari, in an interview with journalists said the Commission is only seeking a new constitutional instrument to cover the newly created electoral areas.
3,367 registration centers. And out of these 33,307 registration centers, the registration is in a cluster form. There are 5 clusters. So what this means is that each cluster will be in a phase. So phase 1 of the registration will be in 20% of the registration centers or the polling centers. And that phase 1 will constitute about 6,000 registration centers. So when we move to phase 2, we are going to have that same number of registration centers. So what this actually means is that we are going to register at every registration center. So by the end of the phases, every registration center would have been captured. So when we begin and we are not yet at your place, just wait for us. The commission will get there and you'll be registered.
So for clarification, are you not looking the existing registration centers?
No, we are not reducing the existing registration centers. What we are basically doing is that the registration is in phases. When we begin phase 1, we are going to tackle 20% of the registration centers. Phase 2, 20%, phase 3, 20%, phase 4, 20%, phase 5, 20%. And that gives us 100%. Then when we finish all, and we also will have a mop-up. So that's basically what we are doing. So nothing has changed from the previous announcement the commission made.
And there are concerns that because it's a cluster form, some of the electorate will have to journey long distances to come to the election.
No, that's not true.
No,
it's not true. The cluster system basically means that when we begin the registration, we are going to start at certain specific registration centers. After 6 days, we move to the next cluster. So what this means is that every registration center will be attended to I hope it's clear. Every registration center will be attended to. So that's what we are
and
doing.
every Ghanaian will be registered at the end of the day.
The PPEs as well, because I'm sure that you're spending about 1.5 million Ghana cedis on procurement of PPEs.
No, I didn't get your question.
1.5 million on the procurement of PPEs for easy officials for the registration.
No, we have over 42,000 registration officials working for the EC. And we are working on getting PPE. When you talk about PPEs, nose masks, the use of hand sanitizers are part, thermometer guns. So there are several things we are procuring to be able to do the work.
And do you know how much you're spending on that?
No, I need to check because the process is ongoing. The EC hasn't said we are using the NIA data. The NIA card is only a form of identification to establish one's Ghanaian. If you are Ghanaian, it establishes that. So just like the passport, that's what it's basically doing. And the commission has said severally that anyone who doesn't have the Ghana card or the passport, 2 people who are already registered to vote will guarantee for you. And once you are a registered voter, you qualify to guarantee for up to 10 individuals.
Meanwhile, minority in Parliament has once again condemned the Electoral Commission's stance on the compilation of new voters' register. Addressing the media after members of the minority met the EC chair, leader of the side, Haruna Idrisu, described her as lacking understanding on essence of data synchronization and harmonization.
He noted that when Jane Mensah was asked about using data collated by the National Identification Authority, she responded in the negative, asserting that the national ID card will only be used for purposes of identification. Haruna Idrisu lamented that the EC chair's responses only spelled doom for the country, stressing that the minority in Parliament remains concerned about the future of the voters' registration exercise.
Data harmonization. In her answers to a simple question, she stated, I'm paraphrasing again, they do not intend to use the data of the National Identification Authority. So what will they do with National ID card? Any person walks there, no opportunity for verification, no opportunity for authentication. She emphasized that they would use it only for purpose of identity, that you are a citizen of Ghana. So she does not understand what it means to share data, to synchronize and to harmonize the data. If any of you have a Ghana card, the chip in it, if you build it into a dedicated and a well-built software and hardware, your bio data must necessarily show up. And you should be able to verify and authenticate it at that polling station. I do not see a cooperation and I do not see a collaboration, even though that have been made an essential primary reference document. But her assurance is that they would accept it only for purpose of identity, that you are a Ghanaian, not the use of the data already processed and stored. Therefore, I feel very concerned about the future of that exercise.
Still on the Electoral Commission, Ghanaians have expressed mixed reactions to the Electoral Commission's statement that there will be no room for transfer of votes in the 2020 elections. The road to the 2020 general election has been fraught with a number of controversies. The elections management body has been hit with legal suit challenging the authorities' decision to come up with a new voters register. In less than 6 months, electorates will be heading to the polls to decide who rules the country for the next 4 years.
Virus now, and the risks that you take. Nobody can travel and go to anywhere. So because of that, you stay in your homes. No votes. Simple. Stay in your home and be safe. No transfer. No votes.
The EC is challenged because people are suspicious of what will happen next when people are allowed to transfer their votes. You know, people can come in with all sorts of allegations and practices that will not merit a clean election. So I think I will go for the EC. If you want to be part of the game, then probably you should respect the rules and regulations associated with it. If you are, and he is the referee, this is what he has brought. So let us respect it.
I don't really see anything wrong about what the EC is saying, because to me, I believe they are making sure that there will not be any double registration and any other kind of registration. That's why they are saying they will not allow, or they wouldn't allow any transfer of the registration.
I think the EC should allow the government. I think the president himself must give that opportunity for those whose votes are far away to transfer their votes so that they can vote, because if the EC or the government is not allowing us to transfer our vote to vote, then it will be some kind of a partial thing that they are doing as of now.
They say we can't transfer it. And I don't know what I'm going to do about it. Or what they will see is what, that's what we take.
You're still watching Pan-African News Radio on Pan-African Television. We are coming to you from our studios in Abelemkpe 48 Swanika Street here in Accra. We're going for a short break. We're back with some more stories.
Breakfast a day. Every day.
Every day.
Nestle. Good food, good life.
This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
Oh, it's incredible! Bang on target!
Welcome back. Now let's do some more local stories, but away from Ghana, let's go to Tanzania, where Tanzania's President John Magufuli has vowed to allow free and fair elections as he seeks a second term in October's general elections. The 60-year-old president told politicians to avoid insults and violence while campaigning as he announced the dissolution of parliament.
Supporters of John Magufuli have nicknamed him Bulldozer, praising him as a hands-on leader who has helped deal with endemic corruption in government. Some critics say he stifled freedom of expression after his assumption of office in 2015. Under his presidency, human rights bodies and journalists have been targeted, some for making mockery of him. Opposition politicians have also accused him of being a dictator. Some of them have been physically assaulted, though the attackers' motives have not been established. The leader of the main opposition Chadema party, Freeman Mbori, was allegedly beaten and hospitalized in what his party said was a politically motivated attack. Despite focusing on the general election, a cloud of uncertainty hangs over Tanzania because of its handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, which President Magufuli has waged an all-out war against.
Now to South Africa, where a primary school in a suburb of Cape Town, South Africa, has installed DIY screens on people's desks to prevent exposure to coronavirus. Pupils are confident about their protection against the virus as school resumed in June.
A 13-year-old learner, Michael Rosvijo, was excited with the device of its protective nature and hoped that the shields will keep his peers safe.
Group screen so they can protect us. It's very well because they protect us, the person at the back, so when he coughs, he can't cough exactly towards me, so I can be protected.
According to an educator at the Dr. G.J. Joubert Primary School, Angus Hetley, the poor observance of social distancing and the size of classes necessitated a quick solution to the problem after help from a teacher.
The classes is too small and social distancing is a big problem. How are we going to keep the kids safe and the teachers? And then we came up with a solution. I came up with this thought and said, look, I've got a lot of planks at home. I will make you frames for the classes. So we use wood that we picked up, the plastic we had from one of our teachers.
Principal of Dr. G.J. Joubert Primary School, Martin Lukes, applauded his staff for devising ways of ensuring safety of both children and teachers, despite the unavailability of money.
We have to think out of the box, especially because of the reason that we don't have much money. And I'm very proud of them because they thought about this thing to do. And the seals would keep the children safe, would keep the teachers safe, and it is cost effective.
The government had originally intended to reopen schools on June 1, but postponed this to June 8 to enable schools better prepare for pupil safety. About 95% of schools had reopened in a country most affected by the pandemic in Africa.
Now to the West African sub-region, where more than 30,000 Nigerians have fled to Niger's Maradi region in the past 2 months. This follows an increase in the number of attacks by armed groups in northwestern Nigeria.
The United Nations High Commission for Refugees said those who fled were allowed to seek refuge in Niger despite border closures to curb the COVID-19 outbreak. According to the global refugee body, refugees spoke of extreme violence unleashed against civilians, murders, kidnappings for ransom and looting of villages, particularly targeting children and women. It also said the latest exodus has increased the number of people fleeing Sokoto, Zamfara and Katsina states of Nigeria into Niger to 70,000 people.
Now, arid drivers in Algeria have demonstrated at the headquarters of the National Union of Taxi Drivers in Algiers against conditions of resumption of operations. The government authorized the resumption of urban transport services last week.
But the strict measures imposed by the government are causing discontent. In separate interviews, some drivers expressed disappointment with the exceedingly worrying situation and the impact it will have on their businesses. They also hoped that the worsening condition will end soon. The Arab nation confirmed its first case of a highly contagious disease in February and has recorded numerous fatalities. The dreaded pandemic has several symptoms such as fever, cough, diarrhea, shortness of breath, loss of appetite, fatigue, runny nose, sore throat, nausea, and vomiting. According to the latest figures, Algeria has registered 11,147 cases, including 788 deaths.
For the local stories. Up next is business. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Makes us good day every day.
Nestle, good food, good life.
This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
Back now, let's go and look at what is happening in the world of business, where the Upper East Regional Director of the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, MOFA, Francis Eno, has advised farmers in the region to increase production without fear of contracting the COVID-19. He gave the advice in an address to agriculture extension officers from the various districts in the region at a sensitization program on the coronavirus disease.
It was organized by the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana to adequately empower the extension officers to educate the farmers, particularly those in the deprived rural community, to demystify the misconceptions surrounding the virus and farming. The regional director explained that COVID-19 was real. However, it was not an excuse not to engage in farming, as it could be done with strictly adherence to the precautionary and safety protocols. Francis Eno applauded the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana for contributing to ensure that the farmers went about their normal activities and encouraged the extension officers to ensure that only the right information was disseminated to the farmers. President of the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana, Mohammed Abdul Raham, explained that the COVID-19 pandemic had affected every sector of the economy, including agriculture, and it was imperative to put measures in place to boost the sector. He said sanitization program was part of the effort to allay the fears of farmers, especially smallholder farmers, to achieve sustainable agriculture production even in the midst of pandemic. He expressed optimism that with the knowledge acquired, farmers would be able to engage in farming activities without contracting the infectious disease. The association also presented some personal protective equipment, PPE, including masks and alcohol-based hand sanitizer, as well as hygiene materials such as Veronica bucket, soap, among others, to the extension officers to be positioned at the various district offices to ensure safety.
Now, scores of pensioners and public sector workers have expressed dismay at the pension package offered by the Social Security and National Insurance Trust, SNIT, saying they would embark on industrial action if the anomaly was not rectified. Chairman of the Forum for Public Sector Registered Pension Scheme, Isaac Bampoado, revealed that there will be a total lockdown of public sector activities on June 25 if SNIT does not follow the correct procedure and formula in paying past credits to pensioners.
Members to embark on the industrial actions are Health Service Workers Union, Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwife Association, Ghana Physician Assistants Association, Government Hospital Pharmacists Association, and Ghana Association of Certified Registered Anesthetists. Others are the Ghana Education Service Occupational Pension Scheme, set up by the Ghana Association of Teachers, Teachers and Educational Workers Union, the National Association of Graduate Teachers, and Coalition of Concerned Teachers, Ghana. Isaac Bampoy, flagged by Thomas T. Musa, the General Secretary of Ghana Education Service Occupational Scheme, Perpetual Ofori Ampofo, representing the Health Sector Occupational Pension Scheme, and Derek Annan for the Judicial Service Occupational Pension Scheme, affirmed their commitment to fight for improved pension. He explained that past credit was lump sum that contributors had earned prior to 2010 before retirement. He said in accordance with Act 766 of the Pension Act, past credits must be transferred to the private schemes, which SNIT had not yet complied with. The Act states that past credits should be determined by a formula agreed between the Pension Reform Committee and the Trust based on actual assessment. Meanwhile, the forum said it has been overwhelmed with ceaseless calls from
Retas, who had been paid exceptionally low past credit by SNET on its own terms, instead of complying with the dictates of the National Pension Regulatory Authority (NPRA), leaving pensioners with very little to go home with. Some of the pensioners at the meeting told the newsmen that SNET had shortchanged them and pledged their support for the industrial action.
That's all for business. We'll be back with international news.
Hello? Okay, why? My wife comes and send a message. Hello? What's happened?
It's a child who's will be a quiet say what? I dare say,
besides one affair, I'm so young. You are not testing messages here. And our officer, so I'm still like Diana. She says, I
mean, so we a guy manu, and may young who could look cry. And also wants a family drilling company limited for Kana.
What's it name? Family Drilling Company Limited.
Ye two borehole, biofuel, biogas, swimming pool, plumbing works in Naso, ye be, Frey 0240 333 111 and NASA 0244 144 822.
Me and Pa and you want to do me see? Me want to be here. Family drilling now. Family drilling. Me out
Welcome back. Now let's do some stories from our international partners. People's Dispatch. The establishment parties in the Irish Republic, the Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, along with the Green Party, have struck a deal to form a new government by thwarting the mandates of the general elections held on February 8, 2020, which is considered as a verdict against the 100-year-old rule by institutional parties in the country. The parliamentary parties of the Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and the Green Party endorsed the program for government deal on Monday, right?
In their general election, the Liberal Conservative Fine Gael, led by ex-Prime Minister Leo Varadkar, lost 12 seats, and another major institutional party, the centre-right Fianna Fáil, also lost 7 seats. The left-wing Republican Party, Sinn Féin, led by Mary Louise MacDonald, has gained 15 more seats in the election by increasing their tally to 37 from their previous tally of 22 seats. According to reports, with a new deal, the Fianna Fáil, led by Michael Martin, Fine Gael, and the Green Party, led by Eamon Ryan, can leave a majority in the 160-seated Dáil Éireann lower house of the Irish Parliament. Fianna Fáil leader Michael Martin is likely to be elected as the new Prime Minister. Pierce Doherty from the Sinn Féin responded that the deal between Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and the Green Party is not the change that the people voted for. Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael cannot be trusted to deliver for families and workers or to deliver on housing, healthcare, childcare and protection of rural Ireland. Jimmy Doran from the Communist Party of Ireland has told People's Dispatch that the coalition of Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and the Greens is a three-party, one-policy government. We only have to look at their recent history in government over the last 10 years. Their record has been austerity and the direct transfer of wealth from the working class to the ruling elites. On housing, they propose social housing, which gives profits to private builders and speculators instead of people housing, public housing, which removes the profit element by being built by local authorities directly. They propose a cost rental model that links rents to the cost of building and maintaining the property rather than differential rents, which links rent to income. They continue on the practice of selling state-owned public housing to tenants, which takes assets directly from the state and transfers it into private hands. They make vague proposal on a single-tier health system. They should be planning for an all-Ireland fully funded public health service, as the inevitability of the reunification of the country comes down the tracks. They propose carbon taxes to tackle the environmental catastrophe, making the working class pay for the pollution instead of making the polluter pay. That is big business. They talk of 2 years of stimulus followed by a period to balance the books. In everyday language, this means softening up the working class with a few consumption from the table to lower aspirations and expectations and accepts the austerity that will inevitably follow. The program for government is vague without concrete commitments. They have set up 68 reviews and 7 commissions to formulate the detail of the program. In other words, they have kicked the can down the road till they can get away with austerity. They said this government marks the end of a civil war in Ireland. There was not a civil war in Ireland, but there was a counter-revolution following the revolutionary period around the War of Independence. The victors, instead of following the democratic program of the First Deal, set about getting a bigger share of the wealth of Ireland for their class. This is 3 parties, 1 policy capitalism. He added, the trade union left forum in Ireland has also accused that the new government is a 3-party, 1 policy government.
From that, cadres of the Communist Party in Denmark has organized protests at 16 places across the country during last week against companies in tax havens getting part of the relief packages during the COVID-19 crisis.
The protests have been organized in Copenhagen, Nørrebro, Østerbro, Amager, Aalborg, Holbæk, Odense, Aarhus, Kalundborg, etc., mainly in front of the companies including Lakagehuset, Babysam, Synoptic, Sportsmaster and BC Hospitality Group. Abage Darren reported that the protests have organized from June 9, Tuesday till June 13, Saturday, and the campaign was well received by the Danish people. A report by TV2 has revealed that no less than 247 companies wholly or partly owned by the tax havens have received money from the Danish government's aid package for pay compensation. Jan Mathisen, chairman of the Communist Party of Copenhagen, has accused that groups including BC Hospitality Group also receives money from the coronavirus relief packages.
Credit to People's Dispatch for those stories. Up next is sports with Maxwell William Chigbe.
Time with the dad, do crazy was a 1 million.
Make me see Mr. White. Let me you can a trade show. But malaria didn't ya chins are a
Jakuma 2 years. So, no down proker her by Mr. We see somebody who say from Orenso, Dr. Katchen said, or malaria, one nipedumwa. So, no dank anti-ma X, Yarea malaria, Ebekokra, Obu Honoma, Yemi and Yanswa. So no dank gastro care hair bar mister on Hobeton. Dank phyto care hair bar mister. Coco, ebe ye hu adwuma ma. Wapon waposo 1 to 2